Do you really think that you should be eating that? Hello everyone and welcome back to the Gamer Crafting Podcast. I am your host Angie, and this week I'm a little bit fed up. Last weekend during the live stream, I asked my wife to grab me one of the miniature sort of celebrations candy bars while we were streaming live on our YouTube channel, which we do every Saturday. We play games, we stitch, we knit and natter. It's great. This interaction lasted maybe about 90 seconds out of the entire 2-hour stream. And yet, almost the moment that the stream was over, somebody felt the need to direct message me on Instagram. Somebody who shall remain nameless because I've already blocked them and I don't remember their name. So if it was you who messaged me, congratulations, you blocked. Anyway, so they messaged me to say this incredibly insightful and helpful advice. They said, you know, Angie, you talk a lot about how you struggle with your self-esteem and you struggle with your self-image. Maybe if you didn't eat so much candy, you would feel better about yourself. Maybe I would feel better about myself if assholes like you didn't just wander into my DMs to tell me what I've known pretty much my whole life, and that's that I'm fat. Thank you, I'm aware. Eating a small candy bar on a live stream isn't gonna ruin anybody's life, especially not mine, I promise you. But you know, since you're so concerned, no. The thing is, every single time that I post about fat positivity or my own journey to self-acceptance on social media, especially on Instagram, I always get comments and I always get DMs from people saying, yeah, but I lost weight and I kept it off. So if you really try, you could do it too. Fam, I have been at this game for a long time, 20 years, over 20 years, I don't know, a long time, at least a couple of decades, trying to play this game of trying to lose weight and you put it back on, and you try to lose weight and you put it back on. And listen, some of us don't have metabolisms designed for slim bodies. I, take after my dad's side of the family. They're northern farming people. They're not meant to be, waif thin people. They've got to be like big people to like push goats around and stuff. The thing is, whenever I take weight off, it inevitably creeps back on, even if I don't change my eating habits. Even if I keep eating healthily, even if I keep going to the gym, which, by the way, for all the concerned trolls in the audience, I do 3 times a week. Sarah and I go to the gym 3 times a week, and we do cardio and we do strength training. And you know what? That's fine with me. I can do strenuous hikes. And in fact, I did one in May. And it was difficult, but it was difficult for everybody there. I can do strenuous hikes. I can heft around enormous boxes filled to the brim with yarn that my courier drivers struggle with, and I just, over the shoulder, up 3 flights of stairs, let's go. And, so it's fine. I am coming to terms with that. I am making peace with my body, but it's real difficult when people who don't know me from Adam just wander into my inbox to tell me things. Well, Angie, if you didn't eat chocolate, you would definitely be skinny. The other thing that I get all the time whenever I post about fat positivity or body positivity on the internet is people saying, well, it's actually really problematic that you're promoting obesity. How am I promoting obesity? I'm not like going around forcing people to eat junk food and forcing them. I'm not like chaining the gates of the gym so that people can't get in, y'all. I'm just existing, and like existing in a way that hopefully doesn't come with as much shame as it did the rest of my life. And that's coming from me, somebody who still has a significant amount of body privilege when it comes to fat positivity, because let's be real, most places that will probably have my size, I tend to wear like an 18-ish, which is kind of like the top end of most places, but I can still usually get by without having to go to specialist stores, unless it's for jeans, and that's because I'm tall. So I still have a lot of relative privilege when it comes to the fat positivity community. So, I will take several seats when it comes to stuff like that, because I don't experience that kind of discrimination. I can fit into an airline seat and use the belt pretty regularly. It's not an issue for me. I can sit in chairs that have arms on them and it's fine. I can sit in theater seats, although I swear they are definitely getting more narrow by the day. The last time I went to see a movie, which was, I guess it must have been Star Wars, I was like, are these seats narrower? I know that my thighs are not that much bigger. But these seats are definitely less comfortable than I remember them being. In any case, so moving on, let's break it down, shall we? So there's the body positivity community and there's the fat positivity community. I really don't see lots of good happening in the body positivity community because it's been overrun by personal trainers and people who want to sell you a better version of yourself and people who want to sell you weight loss drinks and whatever because they're like, hey, it's your body, you can do whatever you want to make yourself feel better. And it's like, well, no, that's not what the fucking point was. The point was is that people should be happy in the skin that they're in. They should make whatever choices they feel are good for them, which can vary wildly from person to person for a wide amount of reasons, whether that's personal ability or whether it's, you know, they've got asthma or whether they've, you know, or like, it's none of your business anyway. But the thing is that the body positivity community seems to be riddled with a hell of a lot of, yeah, size 10s, we're not represented in Hollywood. And your bodies are valid too, and that's right, they totally are. But it's also like the same people being like, yeah, size 10s, you're totally valid, and we're not represented in Hollywood, and that sucks. Those same people will then turn around and message me in my inbox and say, you know, well, I lost weight and I kept it off, so you could too if you really just put the effort in. I have put the effort in, let me tell you, it's a losing game. It's a losing game, and you know, there's studies upon studies upon studies upon studies upon studies that show that over a long period of time, people don't keep the weight off for whatever reason. Whether, you know, there's a lot that we don't know that's not studied because, you know, let's be real, a lot of the studies getting funded are funded by weight loss industries. And by the way, the weight loss industry makes an obscene amount of money. And do you know what? If all of these weight loss products worked, they wouldn't have any returning customers. It wouldn't be as big an industry as it is. They want you to fail so that you have to go and buy their products again, so that you have to go and try something else. You know, I'm just saying, they're not really out for your best interest. The weight loss industry, they're not. I'm sorry. Fat positivity tends to be more radical. And it's not tied to health as an indicator of your worthiness. I know that a lot of people really advocate for health at every size, and that's great. I advocate for it too, but health is not whether or not somebody should be worthy, whether or not somebody should be able to find clothing in their size, whether or not someone should be able to fit into public seating, whether people should be able to fit onto airplanes. You know, somebody else's health is none of your business. That's between them and their team of doctors who are also probably fatphobic. Welcome. The thing is that within the fat positivity community, there's, you know, like I said, I have a lot of privilege. I'm going to say that. I'm going to keep saying that because it's true. Yes, I deal with trolls and people who are assholes. I deal with a lot of my own ingrained bullshit. I deal with it being difficult to find clothing, but not as difficult as other people. I can usually still find things that I like, you know, that are carried by mainstream brands. There's, you know, a particular plaid shirt brand that I like, you know, #stereotype, but I can get it from Amazon and I can order one in every color that fits me, and that's fine. But there's a lot of people that's not the reality for them. Either they can't find things at all, or it's possible that if they can find things, it sucks and it's poorly made and it's gonna fall apart and it's like 8 times as expensive as everything else, and they hate it. It's not them, it's not how they want to express themselves. So that's kind of my opinion on the whole body posy versus fat posy movements here. If I'm gonna pick one to be aligned with, it's definitely gonna be the fat positivity community because they are advocating for radical change, which the body positivity community is not. So last night I decided, you know what, it's January. I have been getting barraged with ads about gyms and weight loss. It doesn't matter how many times I take these things off of my like interested in ad list, they always find their way back on there. So it's almost, you know, the Facebook algorithm gods are like, hey, you're fat, we know you're fat, because you talk about it all the time. Here, have a load of ads. It doesn't matter how many of them I mark as as spam or as, scams. It doesn't matter. They come back. They always come back. They're like those clown things that you punch and they just keep coming back up. It's like that. Anyway, so I went ahead and I took screen grabs of every ad that I got on Facebook and Instagram within about a 30-minute period that had to do with diets or gyms or, that kind of thing. Full disclosure, I did get some ads that were not related to diet and exercise, but they were few and far between, and most of them were about business development courses and a couple for paint sets that I've been looking at. But other than that, it was all this. And I do want to say I think there's only one Instagram ad I took a screen grab from. I don't know why I've been getting a lot less ads on Instagram lately. That's going to change now that I've said this. It's going to hear me and it's going to hear me, and now that's going to be all I get for the rest of all time in creation is going to be ads on Instagram. But I didn't actually really have very many ads on Instagram at all, so I didn't even have anything really to show you other than the one that I took a screen grab of. So as you can see, I got a lot of ads for local gyms. This gym, that gym, another gym, and that's fine. I get that the new year comes around and people are like, yeah, I should probably, move my body more. I'm like, cool. If your goal is to be healthier and stronger, great, good for you. But the fact that this always happens in January, it's always tied to weight loss. Like even the copy on the ads is tied to weight loss. Lose a dress size, lose inches off your waist, talk to our personal trainers and have them turn you into the goddess of your dreams, all this kind of stuff. And I mean, it doesn't matter for me because I already go to a gym anyway. I go to the one that's closest and most convenient because I don't know, I have a busy life. I don't have time to be like driving 30 minutes to go to the gym. So let's look at some of the other ads that I got. We've got lots of weight loss shakes here and there. We've got weight loss shakes, which by the way suck, and they're not good for you, and you're always hungry, and as soon as you stop having shakes for 2 meals of your day, which is by the way just kind of starving yourself, you're just gonna put that weight back on anyway. So maybe stay away from the scary weight loss shakes. And we've got ads for being keto, which I know a lot of people really enjoy, but y'all, it's hard on your kidneys. Please do some research where that's concerned. I worry about you. As a society, we tend to overconsume protein as it is, and that kind of just puts that to a whole nother level. I've got ads for pills that are like some sort of get skinny quick miracle pill, which, for those of us old enough to remember, there was the whole fen thing, at least in the US. I don't know if that was here in the UK, but where they were like, yeah, you'll lose loads of weight. And then just loads of people just dropped dead of heart attacks because it was messing with their cardiovascular system. And here we have a literal giant plate of meat with the ad that it's January, it's a new year, you can eat healthier by eating just loads of meat. I mean, that's not really going to help our ecological and climate crisis, but sure, you do you, I guess. And certainly a choice for marketing. Listen, there's a lot to be said for local sourced meat. There's a lot of different debate about how, in certain areas they're unable to grow crops, and so that's when it makes sense to have animals and so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into that here because that's a whole nother video. I'm just saying, don't jump into the comments telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, this particular ad says nothing about locally sourced meat. It's just giant plates of meat. So I thought that, in the midst of fat positivity and what this video is about, I thought that I would go onto Ravelry and see how many patterns are size inclusive. Now I was searching for sweaters of all kinds, cardigans, and pullovers. So sweaters of all kinds and patterns in English because I cannot read a pattern in another language. So that was my criteria, and adults. So because I didn't want kids' recommendations coming into the mix because sometimes, like, I don't know, kids have strange sizing, and it would be hard for you, as somebody who doesn't have kids, it would be hard for me to make a judgment, on whether or not that was size inclusive. So adults, English, sweaters. So, okay, so out of like 40-ish patterns that I looked at, 20 or 19 or 20 of them were size inclusive, which I say the bust measurement has to be at least 60 inches. That's my criteria. It has to be at least 60 inches. There was a couple that got just squeaked out, and there was also a couple that I disqualified because while technically it was big enough, they designed it to be with, quite a bit of positive ease, and if you take that into the account, if you take the positive ease into account, it wouldn't have fit somebody with a 60-inch bust measurement. There were a lot of patterns that were like small, medium, large. That's it. And it topped out at like 45 inches bust measurement, which is not huge. It's not very big at all. And I just think, well, you're only marketing to like less than half-ish of knitters or crocheters, because I didn't specify by that. There were knitting and crochet patterns that bounced up into my results, although admittedly more knitting than crochet. So a lot of these topped out at, you know, small, medium, large, and there were some that didn't have any measurements at all. It would just say small, medium, large. There were no actual measurements. And I just think, well, how small, medium, and large could mean different things, wildly different things to different people. I don't know if they're using Craft Yarn Council measurements. I don't know if they're using, you know, Hot Topic measurements or H&M. I don't know why I said Hot Topic. That was like the early 2000s coming back to get me. So, I mean, it's good that roughly half of them, I mean, I'm sure it's better today than it would have been if I did this video a year ago, because a lot of fat positivity activists on Instagram have been really pushing designers to be more size inclusive, to grade their patterns larger, to add larger sizes to existing patterns. And that's really good, obviously. So, I mean, it's better now than it would have been a year ago, but I would still like that to be even better a year from now. I will say that there was 3 or 4 patterns by the same designer in the hot right now, and that was by Jennifer Steinglass. Her patterns are really pretty, and in fact, I've added a few of them to my favorites. To me, that says that it's, I'm not 100% on this, but to me that says it's a designer who's gone back and probably added sizing to her patterns rather than necessarily having 3 or 4 brand new patterns that have just released. I also want to say like her Hinterland sweater is to die for. It's beautiful. And also the Night Forest sweater by Casapinka are stunning, but like, y'all are killing me with the 4-ply sweaters. I can't do the 4-ply sweaters. It needs to be at least DK or I'll never ever finish it, even though I totally have a Fox for fuck's sake DK sweater that's totally not done yet, but that's fine. We're not going to talk about that. And I also really like the Sorrel sweater by Wool and Pine. I don't know that I would be able to deal with the higher neck, but it's a beautiful pattern to be sure. I also want to mention one of the patterns I came across called Epone or Epone, which is one of the only ones, even of the size inclusive patterns, that uses a larger model. It's all fine and dandy to be like, yeah, my pattern goes up to, you know, a 65 or a 70-inch bust, and that's really great. They've gone through the effort of doing the grading, of making sure that it's gonna fit and everything, we hope. But if we're not seeing it on a larger model, then how are we gonna know that you've actually taken other things into account? There was a really interesting thread by Carrie Westerman on Twitter, I think last week, or maybe this was on Instagram, I don't know, everything kind of runs together. But she was basically saying that it's not just about sizing, it's taking other things into account as well. Like if you've got something that's all over color work, well, that fabric is going to give less than something that's just like a plain garter or stocking stitch, let's say. So if we're not seeing it on a larger model, like, well, we don't really know, you know, like the grading is there and that's really good, but we don't know if it's actually, if there's other things that have been taken into account. I know that a lot of people like have issues. I've had this issue myself, or when you pick the size that's going to fit you around here and around your belly area, that like the armholes are too big, or the neck is, or the neck hole is way too big. And like, I get that it's difficult. I get that not everybody like puts on weight in the same areas, but I also feel like a lot of that's going to be fixed with more test knitters. And I've seen some designers be like, well, I'm not going to do it because I can't find test knitters. I'm like, I get it, but also you'll find more test knitters if you have a longer time frame that they're allowed to test knit in. Yes, a 5X sweater, a size, you know, let's say a 55 or a 60-inch bust is gonna take longer to knit than a sweater with a 45 or a 40-inch bust. Of course it is. So if you're like, oh, well, you've got 3 weeks to make a sweater, well, a lot of people aren't going to be able to do that in 3 weeks. You've got to give people more time. And I know that a lot of designers are getting better about it, but it's still a massive problem. So I also looked at the new to Ravelry list. So like the 50 most recently added patterns. And yes, I realize that like anyone can add a pattern, etc. But just, you know, I just wanted to check more than one metric, if that makes sense. So I checked the hot right now, and like I said, roughly half, and then I checked the newly added. So of the 50 most newly added patterns to Ravelry, and obviously if you go and look when you're watching this, it could be different because obviously this is going to continually update as people add things. only about 10 out of the 50 were size inclusive. There was a lot that didn't really have much sizing information at all beyond small, medium, large, not even an XL. But they also didn't have measurements, so it's like, well, okay. So this tells me that, right, if you're looking at the hot right now, if you're looking at people like Jennifer Steinglass, if you're looking at people like Tin Can Knits, you know, people who are already successful designers, they've gone back and they've added more sizing. I think Tin Can Knits tends to do a lot of sizing up front, but just follow me. So a lot of designers are going back and they're adding more sizes, and that's really good, but newer designers or people who are just adding things to Ravelry, like, it's still not, that's not good enough. 1/5 is not good enough. And let's talk about how a lot of those were yarn brands who definitely have the resources to grade things larger and access models that are larger and just aren't. I get that it's really difficult for indie designers, and so I try not to throw too much shade at people, especially people who make a difference and they're really trying to be better. But like brands, what is your excuse? I mean, so what is a brand's excuse then? They have the means to access professional photographers. They have the means to access professional models because they do for all of their other shoots. And you're telling me that they can't access grading and larger models? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And a lot of these are quite big brands that people use on a regular basis, and they're doing nothing. A lot of these top out at like 48 maybe, which is still like miles away from where it needs to be. And these are big yarn brands that are trying to sell their yarn, and like, y'all, fat people need more yarn to make our garments. Your best interest is gonna be served by having larger sizes. And this goes for the fashion industry too. And I know that people have gotten into that, but like, especially with yarn brands, because they're doing it to sell their yarn. Surely it's in your best financial interest then to have larger sizes for the people who are going to need to buy more of your yarn in order to make this project. We live in a very fat-phobic society, and it's on all levels. It's in the media, it's in, you know, YouTube comments, it's in DMs from strangers on Instagram, it's from family and friends making snide, snarky comments as you load up with mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving or Christmas going, are you sure you need to be eating that? Yes, I need to be eating mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving and on Christmas. Get off my back. It's everywhere. You know, just last week, Jillian Michaels, who was one of the trainers on The Biggest Loser, who I hate, was doing an interview, and she was snarking on Lizzo, saying, oh, I love her music, but why do we have to celebrate her body? It would be a real shame if she got diabetes. And it's like, okay, we know that Jillian Michaels is fat phobic just by how she markets herself. She was on The Biggest Loser, which was like a horrifically abusive show in a lot of different ways. It was basically like, watch these fatties lose weight as fast as possible so that you can feel bad that you're not losing weight, even though they were literally like starving and dehydrating these people to get better TV ratings, which is disgusting. So she was saying, oh, you know, wouldn't it be a shame if she got diabetes? And it's like, first of all, Jillian Michaels, if you were reading the most recent medical journals, you would know that there's probably links now that suggest that you don't get diabetes because you're fat, that it's the other way around, that you end up gaining weight because you end up pre-diabetic, which a lot of the time is determined by your genetics. So because the medical community for so long has been so fat phobic, they've just been like, wow, fatty, like, stop eating and and you won't have diabetes, when a lot of cases that's not the case. And I mean, I know that there's a lot of different stories out there. I know somebody's probably gonna jump in the comments and be like, oh, well, I manage my diabetes with healthy eating. That's great. I'm glad you found a solution that works for you. I'm just saying that that is not something that's going to work on a broad scale basis for everybody in the same situation, because everybody's body chemistry is wildly different and reacts to things differently. You know, that's why we have people who are allergic to, you know, pine nuts and cranberries, and other people who can eat them by the shovel load and be fine. I don't know, the whole like diabetes thing, man, just let people live. You don't know Lizzo's, you don't know her life. She's jumping around on a stage and dancing and still has enough breath control to be able to sing and play a flute, which are difficult anyway. So, I mean, it's not like she's, it doesn't even matter if she was just sitting at home doing nothing. Like, that's none of Jillian Michaels' business. That's Lizzo's business. And for her to be commenting publicly on this woman's body is absolutely reprehensible, in my opinion. I dare Jillian Michaels to come over here. No, I don't. Please don't come over to my house, Jillian Michaels. But other people's health is none of your business. And just because Lizzo exists and is, you know, a very successful, you know, musician, like, good. Just because her music is amazing and people really enjoy the message of, hey, guess what? You don't have to spend your whole life, you know, ripping yourself apart and having unnecessary surgeries and starving yourself and, you know, taking weird pills that are going to mess up your digestive system just to try and attain for a short period of time this very narrow idea of what society thinks you should look like, which are Westernized European ideals, by the way, so that's another layer of why fatphobia is such BS. So, you know, aside from, you know, shitty comments from family, and I hope not friends, I mean, you can't pick your family, but I'm hopeful you can at least tell people to take a hike if they're your friends and they're being fatphobic and garbagey to you. Aside from that, and aside from people like Jillian Michaels making snarky comments on morning shows about people she's never met, aside from all of that, you know, fatphobia legit can kill people. There are stories floating around on the internet of people that, you know, went to the doctor and they said, I'm having trouble breathing. And the doctors were like, it's because you're out of shape, it's because you're fat, like, just go lose some weight and come back. And, you know, they kept coming back, I'm having trouble breathing, I'm having trouble breathing. And then by the time anyone bothered to test them, it turns out they've got, you know, stage 4 terminal cancer growing in their lungs, and that's why they couldn't breathe. But because the doctor took one look at them and was like, you're fat, that's definitely why. We're not going to test anything. That's it, you know. People have literally died because of fatphobia. So I'm not here for people being like, oh, you know, it's just people being snotty. Like, no, because these ideas are pervasive and they kill people because they can't access appropriate medical care. You know, or you hear about people who have knee problems and, you know, they can't get their knee surgery until they lose weight. Or people who want gender confirmation surgery and they can't get gender confirmation surgery until they lose weight. And it's like, well, you would give them surgery if they wanted to have their stomach stapled, but you're not going to give them surgery to do something else that could potentially save their life. Like, it's all such complete, just toxic garbage, and it makes me so angry. I've been dealing with some back problems as of late. I don't know, like, it happens, right? I tend to have issues with my sciatic nerve from time to time, and it's been, like, you know, sucky. It's been painful, and the stuff that I would normally do to get rid of it, like, hasn't really been working, but I've been putting off going to the doctor because I know that that's what they're going to tell me. I know that they're going to tell me it's because you need to lose weight, regardless of the fact that I was heavier at a period of my life, and the sciatica is worse now than it ever was when I was heavier. They're not going to listen to that. They're just going to say, you know, well, lose some weight, your back pain will go away. Like, no. And this isn't necessarily a story about, you know, obviously sciatica is not going to kill me. It's uncomfortable, but it's not going to kill me. And this other story I'm about to tell is not about something that would have killed me. So again, like, relative privilege. When I lived in Texas, I worked at a Girl Scout camp, and that's where I met my wife, for those of you who know who Sarah is. So I worked at a summer camp in Texas, and I worked there year-round. So I worked there, you know, basically 24/6 during the summer when there was kids at camp, and during like the school year, I would go down on the weekends for troops that wanted to do, like, the high ropes course. For those of you who don't know what a high ropes course is like you climb up telephone pole looking things, you know, and you walk across, you know, tight ropes, and you do climby things and so on and so forth, and then at the end you get to take a zip line down, and it's fun. So I worked there, you know, a couple of, you know, summers, and I worked there throughout the school year as well for troops that would come in, and it came time where I had to have a like a physical renewal, and it was basically for the company's, it was basically for their insurance. So I had to go and have a physical done, and so I went to the doctor that I was registered with, who was in the same town that I lived in, and he was looking at this physical form, and he was like, so you do all this and you don't get winded? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I really don't feel comfortable signing this release form. I'd feel a lot better signing this release form if you lost about 40 pounds. And I was like, I already do this job. I just need you to sign that I'm not reporting any issues, like I'm not reporting any problems breathing or, or anything like that, and that I don't have scoliosis and that, and so on and so forth. And he was just really tied to this weight thing. And I was like, I already do this job. It's literally just like re-upping a physical. And he gave me a really hard time about it. And I finally did convince him to sign it. But I mean, like that, I just went to the car and just like cried for an hour because I was just like, dude, I already do this job. I do this, on a weekly basis during the year and on a daily basis all through the summer, and you're telling me like you don't think I can do this job because I'm sitting in front of you and I'm fat. So like I said, that's, a story that I have about fat phobia in the medical profession. I am also privileged in that I don't have to go to the doctor very often. Like I know I mentioned that, sciatica or whatever, but like again, that's not life-threatening. Like I'm a pretty healthy person touch wood. I don't really have a lot of issues, so I don't come into contact with fat phobia in the medical profession all that often. I just kind of wanted to add, my own personal take on it. Obviously, it's nowhere near as bad as people who are dealing with chronic health conditions and trying to access healthcare and being denied that. It's obviously not as bad as people who have something wrong with them and they can't even get doctors to do the tests because they're just, telling them to lose weight and that's it. So like I'm saying, like I'm not trying to say that my personal experiences are in any way as bad. They are definitely not. If you're watching this video and you're feeling annoyed and you're feeling angry and you want to like jump down into the comments to be like, no, we really can't be promoting obesity, and obesity is the cause of literally every ailment known to mankind. I want you to like just stop for a minute and maybe examine why you feel like that. Examine the media that you've taken in, examine, perhaps what messages you've taken in from weight loss companies or from studies that are funded by weight loss companies. Whenever you see a study that says like, oh, this blah, 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 blah says you can lose weight and keep it off for X amount of time, look who funded this study, because I can guarantee you it's probably a weight loss company. Look at all of these things and then consider, is it possible that maybe all of these messages are created to make you think a certain way, or do you think that I'm lying? It's a spoiler, I'm not lying. I'm just saying, if you're looking at this and you're feeling really angry and you're feeling irritated, then maybe you need to like take a step back and examine why you feel angry and irritated about messages that are supposed to be positive for people who are fat or part of the fat positivity or fat acceptance communities, like, and how that's informing your other decisions. Just stop and think about it. That's all I'm asking, is just to stop and think about it. If you're a teacher, look at how you're treating students who are bigger than the other students in their class. Are you treating them different? Do you not notice that you're treating them different? Maybe you should pay attention to that. Look at how you treat people that are in service working roles, whether it's somebody working at the shop that you go to or whether it's somebody serving you when you go out to eat. How much do you tip them? Is it different than how you would tip someone else? And again, like a lot of this stuff is self-conscious, but you need to like just tear that apart in your brain. And you need to really dissect why it is you're doing the things that you're doing, or if you're even doing them at all. That's all I really have to say. Please do drop me a comment with your thoughts. Yes, I did do this entire podcast wearing my Wonder Woman bra with my hairy armpits, and yes, I will show you that my boxer shorts do have tacos on them. Aren't those awesome? They're made of bamboo. They're excellent. So you know what? That's all I have to say. Join us on Saturday for a live stream with perhaps a special guest, and I hope to see you all at Waltham Abbey on Sunday. Sunday the 19th. At the Marriott Hotel in Waltham Abbey. And what else? And I will be back next week with a podcast on something else. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to my big announcement last week. And as a gentle reminder, if you're interested in queer fiction, specifically science fiction and fantasy, you can follow me at Ryan Fletcher Writes on most platforms. Thanks everyone. See you later.